So this will be coming out a day after the news show that I do, where we've spoken a little bit about it. So I've sort of given some opinions on Benzema and Firmino, and maybe it's developed since then, maybe it hasn't. I'm kind of the belief that if Chelsea are going to do something stupid this month, I think that signing. Well, Chelsea are going to do something stupid. It's like
Yeah, I
if
know.
there's
Yeah,
one, if there's one bet you're going to make, Chelsea are going to do something stupid. I feel like you win that bet every time. Um,
on the Stadio podcast, Musa and Ryan, listen to it if you don't. Um, they talk about existential yellows and existential tackles, where a player will get a yellow card just to feel something in the game because their spirit is so dead. And that is what Chelsea as a football club, I think, are at right now. It's been 15 days and no one's pressed a button. So, like, I can just see something, yeah, happening. But go on, go on.
yeah, like I think it comes down to what you're interested in. Like if we're just taking like Firmino and Benzema, like if I'm Pochettino and whoever the list of like 50 sporting directors comes to me and presents to me these two players, we can sign either on a loan option. Firmino maybe fills the gap that Nkunku has left in some ways of kind of that retracted kind of centre forward who could play with Nicholas Jackson. As I say, I'm not saying that Nkunku and Firmino are similar or they're the same player, but when you think about Firmino as a centre forward, he's much more of that player that's looking to heighten the performances and elevate performances of other players, which is very much what Klopp made him into. But then if I'm looking for a clinical finisher, if I'm looking for someone to actually get on the end of those chances and be the mature player that he's probably been looking for, then yeah, sure, it's Benzema, right? And I think the good thing, at least the little bit of hope I have with both of these players, is that they aren't miles and miles away from their prime, but at the same time, I just can't get away from the fact that Benzema is literally actively missing preseason for his club right now. And as a
He's in his
character,
he's in his Bugatti, just revving it in the car park and
yeah, I
driving
mean,
around.
he's like, he might as well just use it to boost his Instagram cred and take some nice photos with that Bugatti around Saudi. Because
Yeah,
there's no point playing. And I do find, just as a general point, I find it absolutely hilarious. I was like, all the players who went over the summer are now realizing, like 5 months later, it's absolute crap. And like, there's no football being played here at all. Why have I moved to a glorified League Two? I want to go
yeah.
home.
League Two in the desert, where five people per game go. With all due respect, like it's and like yeah, it's it. We haven't heard from Kante. Kante's the oracle that I need to hear from on this. Like, as soon as he tells me what's going on, I'm going to believe what's going on. If that makes sense. Whereas like Henderson complaining, Benzema not going to training, Firmino, like I don't trust them like I trust Kante. But I will say maybe this is one actually for an international break where you and I do sort of those like conceptual episodes. But it's there are certain players. I've said this loads. There are certain players that I cannot believe have not yet or at any point played for Chelsea. There are certain players that just stink of Chelsea. Like for example, I think Dybala is a player that stinks of Chelsea, or like Casemiro is a player I would have always thought would have like even Neymar has a sort of touch of like Chelsea, and Benzema is such a Chelsea. It's just so Chelsea in it to have
It
Benzema up
just,
front.
well, the thing is, right, it's like all the names you just mentioned, they don't bring me excitement, they bring me dread of how bad it's going to be. Like, because
That's the
I've
thing.
now, that's the thing.
Yeah,
You
Morata is
know,
one of them. Higuain, like all these names, Falcao, Pato, like that. But they had to have played for some point in their Chelsea career,
yeah,
and they look back on it. It's like that was needed. We needed to
yeah,
go there for some reason. It was just
yeah.
innate that we're one day
Where
going to
it's
be.
like those,
Marquinhos is one. I think I'm
yeah,
amazed
it's
he
like
doesn't
those
play for Chelsea.
character actors that go around doing all the franchises. So at the end of their career, you're like, oh my god, they were in Star Wars. They were
Yeah,
only in
yeah,
Star Wars for like
literally.
2 minutes, and
Yeah,
they were in the Phantom Menace, which everyone hates, but they were in
yeah,
Star Wars technically when they finished their career. Like
yeah.
there's, yeah,
I always thought
it
Sergio Ramos would have ended up at Chelsea. That kind of thing.
mm.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but it just seems to be like
Yeah, no.
there's something about all these players. I don't know what. But
To me, the reason why Benzema feels like the perfect, especially January Chelsea signing, is because it's like the past their prime striker. It's like we could have Chelsea in some ways. Like part of our gimmick has become the used to be amazing tribute act. Basically, like there's like a here's what used to be great in Europe, and we've now got them. So like, but they're not doing great for us. But I just, if I'm putting my stupid bet on, I'd be less annoyed at Chelsea signing Karim Benzema as I would of us signing this Messino, wherever he is. You know, that's where my head's at the moment.
yeah, I've actually seen, and those people that listen to this, I imagine everyone that listens to this follows you on Twitter. I've seen that you're not a fan. Now, I don't. I haven't even read any scout reports on this young lad yet, so I genuinely don't know. All I see is Twitter propaganda that makes him look very good. I've seen clips and highlights packages, but we're so much past the days of highlights packages being an indication of how good a footballer is because there are so many captures out there. However, I don't hate it as a business long term thing. What I don't trust is that they will have a good enough plan that supports the talent to the top, like Real did with Vinny. I see everyone say this is Real Madrid did it with Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo, and look how good they are now. And with all Vinicius, both of those players are top 20 players in the world, right? They're insane. And Vinicius Jr. is on his day the best player in the world, right? Give or take. Um, but I trust Real Madrid simply through the nature of that institution being what it is and the absolute standards that they push and the levels that they require. And the fact that whilst there are a fair few of high profile mistakes, Real Madrid more often than not get it right. And like actually they get it right because the players are forced to be right because you're at Real Madrid. So for Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo, the prime Brazilian talents at the time, which they were, the pathway is so clear, and there is no higher plinth in football than winning trophies with Real Madrid. It's just not. It just isn't. Whereas if he ends up at Chelsea, I can see him at Malmo on loan in 5 years' time, or at Olympiacos, and do you know what I mean? And then I don't know
Yeah.
what the I don't know how. I would love to know how he fits into a long term plan. Or is he just a star player in a team with stars and they rotate the stars? That's kind of how I think Chelsea owners think it's going to be, like a
Yeah.
Globetrotters-esque. Everyone's great, so let's just play them. And when the subs are great too, so that's fine. Who knows?
This is my point as well. No, my disdain and just complete confusion at this has nothing to do with the individual quality of the player. And some people may get annoyed at that and says, why aren't you taking that into account? It's exactly what you've just outlined. It's, well, number one, if you're paying 60 million for a player, I'm sorry, I know the market is absolutely farcical nowadays, but to me, if I'm still paying 60 million, if I'm paying 30 to 40 million for someone, I expect to be using them tomorrow. Like, I'm sorry, like, to me, if you're paying that amount, especially when you think about what you could use that money for in this particular window, if you are looking to, say, buy a centre forward or a left back, then that's for me also just like absolutely baffling, and why it should be completely taken off the table. The second point is absolutely what you've outlined, is that and it's what we spoke about on the Xmas pod, is like, if there isn't a solid foundation for these players to thrive, then it doesn't matter how good they are. If they haven't got a good environment to develop and grow in, like Vinicius Jr. could have been in an alternative universe at Chelsea and failed drastically, got lost 100%. In the shuffle. Christian Pulisic could have gone to Real Madrid, not got injured, and turned into the best winger in world football. Now, I'm not saying that those two players, if you were to do an analysis of both of their talents, maybe you you sit there and go, actually, one was always destined for greatness wherever they are, and one wasn't. But you get what I'm saying. Like, the environments matter, and the way you cultivate an environment to get the best out of those young talents matters, right? Because Vinicius
Mm.
Junior actually did take a little bit of time to come to the boil to where he is now, what he
Oh, do
is.
you
Like,
remember
he
the
had
Benzema comments?
yeah. But that's another point. That's another point why Benzema probably shouldn't be at Chelsea.
He'll be fuming. You are right. Well, I think we are right in the sense that it is about the foundations. If the move, like, I don't even, none of us know about the internal finances and how it works and where it comes from, blah, 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 blah. So, like, or people know how it works and where it comes from, but not the sort of, if this is money allocated for this age group rather than for the first team, then what difference does it make? Right. So, fine. Maybe a really positive difference, maybe a massive loss difference. But no one actually really, I think, feels invested in the owners like they did under Roman, to the point where those losses financially are going to feel as hurtful. They feel more of a smear against the club rather than a direct loss for the club, if that makes sense. Certainly, that's how I feel about it. Um, but yeah, it would be a steep, steep payment. Um, and also, I mean, there's no harm in having as many as possible, but from everything I hear and read and see about Paez, I think, okay, well, you've got Paez at 15, 16, 17, however old he is, around that age, 15, 16. And you've also got players like Mudryk, who's actually older than I think most people think. Like, he's 23. He's not 19 or 20. Um, you can see a point where their career paths or like anything like that, there'll be no cross. I'm not saying that the direct like position for position, but you know what I'm saying. Like, their career paths might not cross over unless Kendry really like ascends quickly. But I would also think, well, we've had so much propaganda, I guess, and so much news and conversation and hype, and it still persists today. Like, you can type Paez in on Twitter, and people will be talking about him every day. And there's pictures of him at Stamford Bridge and all this stuff. And I think, well, if he is who you say he's going to be, if we're meant to believe from you that essentially, I'm not trying to put the label on him, but he's meant to be as good as Hazard is, or as good as, X top 10, top 20 player in the world, why give that some time and let it percolate? The Messino one, do you need two, and do you have the plans and the structure and the foundations that we're saying to go let those two go through at the same time, as well as making sure the academy is still excellent and we are consistently improving the team now? I mean, yeah, and actually I think the Chelsea academy proved that high quality players come out of it. So if
Well, and
Messina and
also
Pies,
those high quality players are also readily available to start using right now and don't cost you 60 million and are already integrated into the club culture and have already showed a level of versatility and also ability to adapt to the circumstances and the demands and the pressure of the first team better than players that we've bought externally, despite the hype that comes with those players that come from externally. Like this, Estavo might turn out to be the next whoever, or the in 5 to 10 years time he's up for the Ballon d'Or, right? Like, and there's always that argument that no, this is the one we absolutely have to sign. But I think there is a reality right now that as much as we want to look to the future, there is also the importance of the present, and the present right now is looking at a Chelsea team and looking at the people kind of running it beyond Pochettino, who aren't given much faith, aren't given much trust. They come under a lot of scrutiny, and I think a lot of it is very valid over the direction of the club and over the direction of recruitment. And it feels to me like this is just another self-indulgent signing that is for later down the line. And it does feel, not to sound all Gary Neville, but like it does feel like a glorified FM save. Like there's no, and I can't believe that these things don't become a problem later down the line, especially as you've just mentioned. We're recruiting young players right now, sure, older. I mean, this is Stavo 16, right? And that's
yes,
the people around academy football talk about this, and I think it's so important as well, is that you think about the amount of growth as a human being, we all do, right? Think about who you were at the age of 16. So that was, for me, that was a
yeah,
decade
yeah.
ago now.
Me too, me
In
too,
10
me too.
years, you think about now. I understand that and the average the average person listen to it have a very different 16 to 26 experience than a professional athlete, right? And I understand that it's a wildly different world with wildly different circumstances, but at the same time, this still is a very young guy who people are putting so much weight into and so much pressure into, and a price tag that some players never reach in their whole entire careers. It just feels like most players, most footballers don't reach that level, and it's like there's got to be some collateral damage to this, right? Like, I can't believe that from a young player who's already attracting attention, and these players that Chelsea are signing are already garnering so much attention before they've even played a lot of senior football. Like, that's the difference between, say, a talent like this and the talents that we've developed via our academy, and then you send them out on loan and they play 1 to 2 years senior football. Like, you think about Tammy Abraham, how many reps he had in senior football before he finally played as a number 9 for Chelsea. Same with Mason Mount, same for Reece James. And I think they were absolutely at a point then to be mature enough to be put in that role, whilst these players are so undercooked. And Chelsea, putting these players into the chaos and washing machine that is Chelsea Football Club right now, just for their own sake. I don't think, we've made this point before, like the betterment of individual players over the club. Like, I wouldn't advise young players to make that move. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this show. If you're a Chelsea fan and you want more carefree content, please do hit that subscribe button. Really helps the channel out, as well as the like button and sharing it around with friends so more people can get involved in the community. And you can follow Son of Chelsea across socials at Son of Chelsea on TikTok, on Instagram, and on X. Thank you.